What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, we head into the weekend without a quarterback. News is dying down, but getting crazier by the day, and I think it's just changing course at this point. That's where we stand when it comes to the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers, everything else going on, and where our brains are taking us, which is every other option outside of the 41-year-old four-time NFL MVP. We're diving into a ton going on this Friday. DK Metcalf contract details come out, which look real good for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think open the door for more possibilities this offseason. The top 5 remaining needs for the Pittsburgh Steelers as we leave week 2 of free agency and really head into the final round here of moves that will be made before the NFL draft. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers being warned about Aaron Rodgers, heavily warned. So at the same time, you got to ask the question, are they willing to go make a trade, not next year, but this year, to go get their quarterback in the NFL draft? One insider says that it's a possibility. We're going to dive into whether or not we believe it is. It's a chilly one here in the Berg, but we were just talking before we jumped on here. This is it, man. This is the end of it. You get one last crappy weather, little surge of, hey, we're not there yet, and then we're there. And then it's beautiful, and then it's spring, then it's the NFL draft, and before you know it, we're sitting on our couch watching football in the fall with a nice breeze going on in the city of Pittsburgh. How you feel, my friend?
Yeah, it's one last slap in the face to remind you, hey, in about 6 or 7 months, I'm coming back, and this is just a taste. So just like, don't forget about me. That's Pittsburgh weather in a nutshell. I lived there long enough to know that that last weekend, you gotta bear it, because on the other side of it, there's a lot of golfing, there's a lot of cookouts, there's a lot of fun in the sun, and maybe, if you're brave enough, fun in one of the 3 rivers.
Yeah, no chance. There, no chance.
Allegheny.
I would never touch the river ever. That is the wildest thing I think people have ever done in the city of Pittsburgh. There have been some crazy things that have happened in this city. The fact that they've pulled hundreds of cars out of that river, which means that chances are there were bodies in that car, maybe, and whether they're not, there's the possibility that there was, and you're just swimming in there. Let's also not act like, I don't know, man, I'm good on those rivers, dude. I am good on the rivers.
Does it change it at all if you're swimming to get like an O'Neal Cruz home run ball that he bombed out of PNC Park? You're not touching.
It makes it worse, to be honest with you. Like, it makes it way worse. Why do you need that ball? Why do you don't? I'm good. I am totally fine.
All right.
There's no chance I would ever touch that river. Nope. There's no. I would swim in the middle of the ocean before I jumped into the Allegheny, Ohio, and especially
certainly not the Mon.
Certainly not the Mon. Any of those rivers, I'm good. They are essentially the same river, just connected into. Nope, I'm good. Anybody who does, wish you nothing but the best. I hope one day you do not grow a third arm, but I'm not going to rule that possibility out. I'm never going to rule that possibility out. All right, let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers here. DK Metcalf contract details came out last night. Looks good. Looks great for the Pittsburgh Steelers, if we're being honest. His base salary jumps all over the place. We'll break it down individually. I'll just give you all the details, then we'll kind of say what it means for the Pittsburgh Steelers. His base contracts over the next couple of years, $5 million this year, $25 million next year, $20 million in 2027, $23 million in 2028, and $30.5 million in 2029. Now, he's got a $30 million signing bonus this offseason, but his next guaranteed roster bonuses don't come until the final 3 years of his deal, which are 6.5 in 2027, $5 million in 2028, $5 million in 2029. 2 years of his deal are guaranteed. That's this year and next year with the base salary, and then $20 million of his third year is also guaranteed. This year's cap hit, this is the big one, somehow decreases $7 million and is only $11 million in 2025. It makes things a little bit hit or miss, because while it does improve the cap number, I think a lot of people were still judging it off of what it was, which means that you save $7 million. Awesome. That's great for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, fantastic for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But for a guy that is making $30 million a year, I think we expected it to be higher, and we're looking at that number to be more significant. $7 million in my eyes is still a great move for the Steelers. They also do some historical things, like the fact that they are guaranteeing essentially 3 years of a deal is not something they have ever done for a wide receiver before. The fact that they have roster bonuses the last 2 years of this guy's contract is not a Pittsburgh Steelers move whatsoever. The rest of it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, his cap hits those final years, you got to think there's no chance he's sticking around. I think it's $41.5 million in 2029 when he is 34 years old, 35 years old, somewhere in that.
I think.
32 years old would be that number. That's still a lot of money for a guy who would be certainly near the end of his career at a wide receiver. Still moves that, I mean, you got to look at it and just say, this is a win. Another example of why Omar Khan is called the con artist, and why the Pittsburgh Steelers general manager, a lot of people say he's not good at this, he's not good at that. When it comes to contracts, there is nobody better. There's nobody better than Omar Khan, and what he does, he deserves all the praise in the world. And he just opened up more money for the Pittsburgh Steelers to say, all right, let's go, sign Aaron Rodgers to a $40 million deal. I get it. That's crazy, but that's what the Steelers are thinking. It opens the door for a bigger draft pick, which we'll get to a little bit later. It opens the door for another playmaker. It opens the door for an offensive tackle, which the Steelers desperately need, or a big name defensive tackle, which the Steelers also need. It opens the door for many, many options, and we'll dive into those here in a second, but essentially saves them $7 million and makes the Steelers look very good in a year where they're still going to sign TJ Watt, which is also going to create cap space. And they have other ways to create cap space. They're now sitting somewhere over $50 million. That's minus I believe it's still only $43 million, somewhere in that ballpark, because I don't think DK Metcalf was included in that number the last time we looked at it. And then obviously you take $10 million off for the NFL draft. $11 million this year, 525, 20, 23, 30.5 with the $30 million signing bonus. I mean, win for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it almost looks, and I might just be looking at this too simply, but whenever I saw the breakdown of the contract, it looks like, hey, we're going to spend big money on a quarterback this year, maybe next year, and then you're going to be looking at a rookie quarterback deal for the final 3 years of DK Metcalf's contract if he's around. It's kind of the way it's structured. It's the way that it feels like the Steelers might be trending as of this moment, and it feels like the Steelers might still have a lot of their offseason to go. It feels weird to say that at the end of week 2 of free agency, but it feels like the Steelers could have some moving and shaking here that we didn't expect to happen come April and into May.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers still have positions that they need, and we were hitting the point where it was like, okay, a quarterback contract is going to take up a good chunk of this. If you're going to go sign Mason Rudolph, you are looking at a situation, Aaron Rodgers, you're looking at a situation where that's probably at least a $30 million cap hit this season. That's pretty massive. You don't have much money after that, and you still have positions of need. Now the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at it going, all right, like now we've got money. Now we've got a pretty good chunk of money heading into the final wave of free agency and the beginning of the NFL draft and whatever comes after that, because that's when the second round of big moves are made, is after the NFL draft. That's when teams make trades, cuts happen. I mean, we're talking George Pickens trade constantly. If that's going to happen, I don't know if it happens before the draft. I mean, I have a scenario here in a little bit that I'm going to lay out where I think it's a possibility. But I think after the draft is when those moves get made, guys get shuffled around, and the Steelers are going to look at it and go, we have options. We have enough money to sit here and say we can go after Brandon Ayuk. Not that he's available, but just a Brandon Ayuk type player where we could spend big money in June and July to round out our roster for what we didn't get in the NFL draft. So let's talk their biggest needs, because that's where the Steelers stand currently. They've done a lot of good. We'll start by saying that. I mean, I can't acknowledge that, or I can't talk about this without acknowledging that the Pittsburgh Steelers have done a lot of good this free agency. They've filled their defense with plenty of needs, from safety to depth at defensive tackle. They found a corner to start next to Joey Porter Jr., and I get it. I would have played the long game, but Darius Slay isn't a bad name to have for any team in the NFL. They added another running back. They replaced Najee Harris with Jaylen Warren. They maybe set themselves up to move on from Cordero Patterson, who continues to just lash out throughout the offseason. They obviously add DK Metcalf. There are still moves to be made, but overall, the Pittsburgh Steelers have looked pretty good with their offseason additions. Now, they've got some additions left. They have some moves that still need to be made before free agency ends and really the NFL draft ends. It doesn't have to all come within the next week or two. It doesn't even have to come within the next month. And quarterback tops this list, obviously, but I'm not going to talk quarterback because we'll talk quarterback afterwards. The way I look at it is quarterback is the most obvious glaring. I mean, you're wild if you sit here and come up with a list that doesn't start with QB. So we'll remove QB. I'll go with the other 5 after that. These are the positions that the Pittsburgh Steelers still need. Like, they have not found, and whether it's through the NFL draft or free agency, they must fill them all before the start of OTA's minicamp and eventually training camp. It starts with offensive tackle. Everybody will say defensive tackle, but it's offensive tackle. They do not have a swing tackle right now. It is one of the most crucial positions on the offensive side of the football. I mean, I get it. Linemen are the least admired group of players in the NFL. But if Broderick Jones stinks and the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have another backup option, where do you go? You don't go anywhere. You just stink. That's what you do. If Troy Fautano's knee gives out again, where do you go? Spencer Anderson for the rest of the season? No, you're in trouble. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't even have a glimpse of a swing tackle right now. If anything, they have Spencer Anderson, who last year we made fun of all year, that the Pittsburgh Steelers were telling him, you've got to play center, guard, tackle, tight end, quarterback, doesn't matter. Right now, he's set to do it all once again. The Steelers need an offensive tackle. They desperately need an offensive tackle. I thought they were going to sign one in the first wave of free agency. I thought that's what it was coming to, was before everybody got super expensive, before all these teams signed, Dan Moore and those guys to these massive deals, or shortly after, the Steelers would grab somebody saying, all right, you're not getting $80 million with $50 million guaranteed, but, we'll give you $10 million. Here's $10 million to come be our backup swing tackle and, maybe compete with Broderick Jones, but chances are he's going to start, and you just have to add some pressure to the situation and make it work. That's what you have to do. You have to be reliable enough that if we need you, you're going to be on the field in a starting capacity for at least some sort of time frame in 2025. Now, I have 2 names that fit that mold that I think are still on the board for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The first one is Jedrick Wills from Cleveland, 25 years old, will be 26 by the time the season starts. Not the greatest tackle. I mean, has struggled mightily during his NFL career. And the fact that this dude was viewed as like the next guy in Cleveland when he showed up out of Alabama and has not turned into much, is only here for 4 years and then moving on, has still not signed with the team even at 25 years old. I mean, Dan Moore struggled and got $50 million guaranteed. Wills is just looking at it going, I hope I end up somewhere. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could look at him as a guy who needs a change of atmosphere, a guy that's worth taking a risk on for a super cheap contract. And at this point in the offseason, like, you're not getting anybody else. You're not, I mean, Chooks Okorafor is off the board, which means your options are very limited. I look at Wills as just a maybe. Maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't, but he's a safety blanket for right now for a swing tackle. He's got the ability to play both sides, and he's 25, turning 26 years old. Might as well take a shot on somebody because best case scenario works out. Worst case scenario, you don't guarantee him any money. And the longer that he sits in free agency, the worse that deal's going to get. And you could just look at it and go, all right, whatever. Come to Pittsburgh, be our guy behind Broderick, see if you can make the roster. In the meantime, we're probably going to draft a tackle or an offensive lineman to say he's going to compete with you. You have to beat him out. But I'm not totally opposed to taking a shot on a guy who comes from Alabama and had so much potential coming into the league, just hasn't been able to actually replicate it on the field. The other one I think is a bigger risk, but also a younger option. And at this point, that's almost what you're looking for. This one switches things up. This is Isaiah Wynn from Miami, former New England Patriot, dealing with a massive injury last season, is still obviously recovering. I'm not even totally sure that he's going to be available for training camp or OTAs. I don't know where he stands with his injury update. But what I do see is a guy who could come in here and has starting experience at guard, who teams viewed as a starter in the NFL. And what he does is allow Spencer Anderson to become the swing tackle. And I'm okay with that too. I don't care where Spencer Anderson plays, as long as he only plays one position. That's all I'm looking for. Just play tackle or guard. That's the only two moves that the Pittsburgh Steelers have to consider. I think Isaiah Wynn could come in here for super cheap, be a guy that can add pressure to Mason McCormick, because you go back a couple of months and the Steelers are talking about, or at least Jerry Dulack's talking about the Steelers wanting to have competition for Mason McCormick. Isaiah Wynn is competition that's only 26 years old. So you could bring him in and say maybe he's a starter, but probably not. Best case scenario, he's a quality backup who is healed, who allows us some flexibility, who adds a presence behind Mason McCormick and Isaac Seumalo that the Steelers have not had in several years that they could need, because you've always, since Matt Filer or BJ Finney have left, the Steelers have been searching for the next Matt Filer or BJ Finney. That guy that could come in a pinch and be a starter, no questions asked, and you're not even worried about whether or not he's the starter. They don't have that right now. They have Spencer Anderson, and I like Spencer Anderson, but I think Isaiah Wynn gives you a lot more flexibility. I'm going to dive less into the options after this, so I'll toss offensive tackle at you first here. Two options there. Either of them make sense.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line right now, the starters are set. The backups are a lot of question marks. Both of us were sitting on this podcast saying it makes sense to try to bring back Nate Herbig, but of course, Nate Herbig's gone. He's off the board. So they still have those needs. And it's not going to be big, flashy names. It's not going to be huge signings that are going to kind of grab headlines, but they need these level of players, because I believe in Broderick Jones at left tackle, but at the same time, I'm not willing to bet my entire season on Broderick Jones protecting the blind side of a quarterback that might be a statue back there and Aaron Rodgers. So you do need contingency plans. You do need backup plans, and look no further than what happened last season. Yeah, they were set up pretty well, having Troy Fautanu, having Broderick Jones, and having Dan Moore. There's a lot of question marks, but they were set up well. They were set up well with Nate Herbig, who could play any of the three interior positions, as well as a rookie in Zach Frazier that everybody had high expectations for. Well, 3 weeks into the season, all of your contingency plans went out the window. So the fact that right now they're kind of flying blind with one utility offensive lineman as their backup, it's a huge need that is falling by the wayside, and one that, if you look at the NFL draft, it's probably not one that they're going to address early. So you need to address it in free agency. So as far as those two names, it's what you're getting right now, right? Yeah. You're not getting a starter quality at this point. You're getting guys that there's going to be some downside, but there's going to be some upside. And you have to hope that when they get into the building, that you're going to be able to coach them up, and they're going to be able to push these guys from that are in the starting positions going into OTAs.
Yeah, I agree. And I think both of them are young enough to maybe have that potential. Next is a starting defensive tackle. And I think you get that through the NFL draft, but the Steelers don't have it yet. They still don't have anybody to replace either Keanu Benton or Larry Ogunjobi. If Keanu Benton's moving to end, you need a nose tackle. If Keanu Benton staying at nose tackle, you need a defensive end. Either way, he's got to be flexible enough to play both. They have options in the first round. Defensive tackle, though, the way I look at it is you cannot avoid defensive tackle for the remainder of the season, which follows the next one, which is running back 3. I don't think it's Cordell Patterson. I think it's Kenneth Gainwell. I'm not positive it's Kenneth Gainwell, but I do look at it like you got to have somebody else. You can't keep it the way that it is because somehow the Steelers running back room gets significantly worse if it's Jaylen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and Cordell Patterson. If you have a rookie in there, great. If you have a name like J.K. Dobbins in there, great. I don't care how you go about it. I think the NFL draft adds way more upside for the future and is cheaper. Instead of J.K. Dobbins on a 1-year cheap deal, you could go rookie that you're getting for 4 years that you get to mold. If you draft him in the first round, you get a 5th year to say, hey, this is our guy. We at least get him through what is most of the people on this roster's next contract or current contract, and we can decide at the end of that where we stand as an organization. But you need a new running back. Again, just like defensive tackle, I think the NFL draft is the place to go, but everybody keeps tossing out J.K. Dobbins and all these other names. The longer J.K. Dobbins sits on the board, the more you got to think the Pittsburgh Steelers are at least considering it as an option, because there's no chance that they watched J.K. Dobbins for the past couple of years and said, when he's healthy, he's a good running back. He's a good running back. And yeah, we need a defense or a running back in the NFL draft, but they haven't really shown their hand outside of the combine to say we're bringing in these early round running backs. They're not. They're bringing in late round running backs to get a look on the Dylan Sampsons, to say, who can we get that might be a steal that we can bring in here to be a quality backup? RB3 is my next one. Staying in the backfield, it's a fullback. You showed your hand with Kyle Juszczyk. I'm sorry, but Connor Hayward is not a fullback. He's never been a fullback. And this is Arthur Smith's offense. Go get a freaking fullback. I mean, the Steelers have been teasing it for years. The options are out there. Go sign somebody. Go figure it out. Go draft somebody if you need to. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have tried. Like they've tried for years to get a fullback. You could go last year with Jack Coletto. You could go the year before that with Monty Pattenbaum. You could go this offseason with Juszczyk. The Pittsburgh Steelers have shown that they have interest in a real fullback, and they have not gone and got one. Luckily, their needs are not that deep, and fullbacks are cheap. So you can go get one and say, all right, this replaces Connor Hayward, who remains on the roster, but replaces Connor Hayward. I think that's the perfect situation for a team that is going to run heavy. I mean, we could talk Jalen Milroe and the potential of him being drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. If he ends up being the Steelers starting quarterback in 2025, which you can't rule out as a possibility where we stand right here, do you really think he's going to throw the football that much? No, he's going to run the football all the time. The Steelers are going to run the football all the time. You want to know what helps a running back? A fullback. I still remember the day it was my first year in the locker room and Rosie Nix was coming back from a knee injury. And James Conner, when I asked, hey, you pumped that Rosie's coming back? I've never seen that man smile in my life. I haven't seen him smile since then. But I saw him smile in that moment. I saw him glow up and say, yeah, I'm pumped to have Rosie Nix back. You need a fullback. I don't know where you get one, but you need a fullback. The Pittsburgh Steelers need a fullback. And finally, number 5 here is a George Pickens replacement. That's where the Steelers need to go next, because I still fall under the belief that there is a stronger chance that George Pickens is gone before the start of the season than he is on the roster at the start of the season. I get everybody wants to talk and say, yeah, well, you can't trade George Pickens unless you replace George Pickens. The Steelers have never listened to us once. They're not going to start listening to us now. If we all say that, doesn't mean that their plan isn't different. Doesn't mean that George Pickens isn't going to not show up for training camp and say, I'm not coming unless I get a deal. And whether they have a replacement or not, they have to move on from him. All of these are possibilities. So you need a replacement option. You need the next guy to replace George Pickens somewhere in the line. I don't think that option is available in free agency right now. I do think it's available in the NFL draft. I think it gets very difficult to find that guy with doing other things in the NFL draft. But I do look at it and say, you need a George Pickens replacement, because I find it very hard to believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers are keeping him around. And I have not been told anything that convinces me otherwise. Everything that I hear, everything that I read, everything that I see says George Pickens will not be here in 2025. And the Steelers are going to find themselves, unless they make a move early, where they don't have somebody to replace him, and they need to. Those are my other four: starting defensive tackle, a third running back, you need a fullback, and a George Pickens replacement. Those are my top 5 remaining needs for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the most precarious of those positions is the last one that you mentioned. I think the other 3 are pretty clear and obvious. We all know that they're looking defensive tackle, and trust me, the draft prospect that I have fallen in love with is Kenneth Grant, and I'm not going to let that go until the beginning of May, whenever he's inevitably probably on the Bengals, because they took my favorite in last year's draft in Amarius Mims. But it's a situation with the wide receivers that you saw how bad it could get last year. You don't want to put yourself in that same position again. I understand that DK Metcalf is somebody who, although does have his injury issues, probably stays on the field and stays in the game a little bit better than George Pickens. But again, that is very minuscule. Whenever you're going with him and Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin and not a number 2 there, I think that's a scary position to be in, especially whenever your quarterback situation is so in flux at this moment. Now, you're hoping that you'll figure it out sooner rather than later. But again, as we sit here today, we don't know who the starting quarterback is in 2025 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's going to be important that you keep as much talent around that position as humanly possible. And I know that, the George Pickens situation is not going to be a fun one, right? Is he going to show up? If he does, I mean, it could be in his hands. If he shows up and says, you know what, I'm going to take this as a challenge. I want to be running mates with DK, and I want to play on the last year of my contract. That's the best case scenario for the Steelers, is that they get to keep George Pickens and that he is present for everything this offseason, because that puts you in the best position possible. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and I feel like that is going to rear its ugly head later in this season with George Pickens. So the NFL draft is a tough one, because you do have those needs. And I'm wondering who out there, trade-wise, is going to be able to come in as a number 2, because you're not replacing George Pickens 1-for-1. Not in a draft, not in a trade. It's not possible. You're not getting anybody of that caliber. You have to get as close as possible, and I'm just not sure where they're going to find it.
No, I agree. And I think in the business side of the rearing its ugly head, look, and I hope that George proves me wrong. I always hope that George proves me wrong, but nothing George has done over the past couple of years shows me that George Pickens is ready to just show up and say, I'm willing to push through this. I'm willing to be that guy. Until I'm proven otherwise, I'm anticipating the worst. And that stinks, because I'm an optimistic guy. Some circumstances, you got to be realistic about the situation. And just the NFL history itself tells you that chances are that's not going to go very smoothly, that it's not going to work itself out. There are very few T. Higgins in this world, very few, especially in this business. And again, just history and the off the field issues already concerning for, especially if you don't have a quarterback. Right now, George is operating through this offseason without a quarterback. He's been told, essentially, you're not going to get paid this offseason, and we don't even have anybody to throw you the football. So things are going great here. I don't think Pittsburgh's even a place he'd want to be as a competitor, let alone a competitor that's not going to get paid, who's going into his contract year, who wants to get paid a year from now. This is the big one. This is am I going to get $30 million a year, or am I going to get 20? That's what's going to happen here. Well, if Mason Rudolph's throwing you the football, chances are you're getting 20. Chances are that's where you're going to end up. So you end up in San Francisco or New England, which I still think is a prime place for George Pickens. You're probably looking at the 30 side of things, and I think that works out better for George Pickens. All right, let's finish off our agenda here by talking about the quarterbacks, where we currently stand. I've been watching a lot of podcasts recently. I've been diving. I mean, if you walk around my house at any given time, it's just me listening to people talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. obviously, like, this is my job. This is my career. This is what I love to do. I love to follow this stuff, and following it leads you in some wild places. So let's start with Doug Whaley giving the Pittsburgh Steelers a warning about a guy who might want to retire and might not want to retire. He said on The Fan, quote, "We're in Buffalo and Percy Harvin gets cut from Minnesota." This is him telling a story about Percy Harvin joining the Bills and why the Pittsburgh Steelers should not go after a guy who was on the verge of retirement. Quote, "And we call him and say, 'Hey, were you interested? We're interested in you.' And he goes, 'I'm thinking about retiring.' And then at the time, Anthony Lynn was our running backs coach, and I think our offensive coordinator. And he says, 'I'd love to have him, but once you hear athletes start talking about retirement, they're already retired. So we end up signing him anyway.'" He continues, "About week 8 or 9, we're going over to London to play the Jaguars that week. And he comes in and says, 'I'm retired.'" And we're like, wait a minute. It was crushing because we were right in the playoff mix. So I take that as a cautionary tale. I do not think Aaron Rodgers is the guy that's going to retire in the middle of the season. I don't think that's something that's going to happen. What I do look at it as is the Steelers are probably starting to consider all of their options. The longer that this becomes more retirement versus Steelers instead of Vikings versus Steelers. And everybody keeps floating out the idea that the Pittsburgh Steelers draft a quarterback in the first round. Jeremy Fowler floated out the idea on the Rich Eisen show yesterday that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be aggressive either this year or next for a quarterback. He floated out the possibility that maybe they make a trade for their guy in 2025. And they say, let's see what could happen. Now they're fighting an uphill battle because they don't have a second round pick. But let's talk about the possibility of that actually happening, because I have also had those thoughts. I do not think that it's likely where we stand right now, but I am not going to rule it out, because the Steelers, as this progresses, are going to get more and more desperate. And while everybody sits around and says next year's draft's better, the Steelers are looking at how bad things are right now and how they will not give up on this season. And the best way to go about that is to probably add a quarterback that has starting quality talent. I don't think they'd make a move for Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that's an option. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is Pittsburgh Steelers material. He doesn't have the mobility. He doesn't have the arm strength. It's really if you could fit into our offense, Shedeur Sanders is a good quarterback. He's the Bo Nix of the draft. If he ends up in Cleveland, I think it's a good spot for Shedeur Sanders, because I think Kevin Stefanski is a great coach when it comes to making an offense for his quarterback. I think if he ended up in Tennessee, it'd be the same situation, but I find it very hard to believe that Cam Ward's not going to be the first pick in the draft. That dude is a stud, and he's the only guy that you look at and go, there's a more than likely possibility he turns out to be a superstar in this NFL draft. Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck are the two names that I'm watching, and I think it depends on how quickly these names come off the draft. I was talking to somebody last night, and somebody within the league, and there's a growing belief that Jackson Dart could end up in New York or Vegas with the fourth pick, or the third pick, with the seventh pick, could end up in New York with the Jets at the sixth pick, I think, or maybe the seventh, and the Vegas has the sixth. And that Tyler Shuck could be the guy that comes in after him as that next big name off the board. Now, in the same conversation, we start talking about Tyler Shuck. And there are a lot of scouts out there who I've spoken to, who others have spoken to, who think Tyler Shuck is a first-round quarterback, who thinks that Tyler Shuck has a better arm than anybody in this draft class, that can make all the throws better than anybody in this draft class, and who has mobility, whose injury history is the thing pulling it back more than anything else. I don't know if I fall under that belief, but we're not talking about what I believe. We're talking about what is possible for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If Jackson Dart goes in the top 10, man, depending on where they'd have to go, I do think the Steelers are interested enough in Tyler Shuck to say, let's do something crazy. That something crazy would have to be moderate enough to maybe give up this year and next year's first round pick, and that's it. But I do think that if quarterbacks start flying off the board, the Pittsburgh Steelers could sit there and go, all right, we got to make a move. It's got to happen. If we don't have Aaron Rodgers, we have nobody. Let's make this a thing. I've been told that they're very comfortable with Mason Rudolph starting some games in 2025, but not all of them. And if you got to develop a rookie in the meantime and wait for him to be ready to start, okay, great. That's not Jalen Milroe. It might be Tyler Shuck. It might be Jackson Dart. Who knows? But I think that as we get closer, you're going to hear rumbles, more and more talk about the Steelers being a team to watch to make a move for a draft or for a quarterback. Let's toss this trade out there. You go up to, I don't know, let's say 12, 13 maybe. I don't even know who has those picks. Can you look up who has those picks? And you offer your first round pick this year, your second round pick next year, and this is where it gets complicated. So I need to know who the picks are before I toss this out there.
12 is the Dallas Cowboys,
Beautiful.
Which I don't think they're trading out of anywhere, personally. And then 13 is the Miami Dolphins.
Why would the Dallas Cowboys not trade out of there?
Because the Dallas Cowboys love running backs, and that is the edge of where that running back is going to be. And you know who I'm talking
about. No. Ashton Genty gets out of the top 6, you think? You think he gets past Vegas?
If you're talking about all these quarterbacks going,
somebody's got to fall. Only 3 of them. Only 3 of them.
Somebody's got to fall, though.
You don't think New York's got Tyrone something, whatever his name is. Somebody's got to fall. Oh, dude, if Ashton Genty makes it to 12, wild times. Well, I'd go trade up for Ashton Genty. Screw a quarterback. I'd go trade up for Ashton Genty. If Ashton Genty makes it past Vegas, unless Jackson Dart's on the board, but I still think Shedeur Sanders is their guy. That would be nuts. That would be so nuts. Those teams from 6 to 11 would be passing up on the best player, second best player in the draft. That's what they would be, which would be so wild to me. All right, let's say who's 13?
13's Miami.
Who's 14?
14 is Indy.
Indy's a good one. Indy doesn't need a quarterback, but you want to know what they do need? You want to know what they'd be very open to? Maybe a wide receiver. Who's 15?
15 is Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta definitely would love a wide receiver. For good old Michael Penix, dude. Next to Drake London. I think that's a possibility as well. You toss in a first-round pick, a second-round pick next year, and the Pittsburgh Steelers say, hey, we'll toss in George Pickens. Let's go get our quarterback. And I think, as crazy as it sounds, as we get closer to the draft, packages like this will start getting talked about. And depending on who that team is, maybe. Depends on the growth of Tyler Shuck over the next month. But it's fast. It is moving so fast. I mean, Mel Kiper yesterday, again, said in a conference call with just like reporters saying, there could be 6 quarterbacks that go in the first round. 6 quarterbacks. That's insane. The Steelers are expected to be one of those. He said that Tyler Shuck is the name. He said when asked, there were 2 questions about the Pittsburgh Steelers. The first one was Jackson Dart. Is he the guy for the Steelers? He said, I don't think he has any shot of making it to 21. Okay, who's the next guy? Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck's blowing up. Tyler Shuck's the name to watch right now. Tyler Shuck is the name that's going to come into the first round. Tyler Shuck's there at 15. You don't gotta give up that much to go up to 14, 15 from 21. You give up you give up your first and George Pickens alone and say, there it is. There's the move. I think that trade is, I don't think Tyler Shuck's the guy, but again, my opinion does not matter. If it's a possibility, that move gets you there. And that move would get you there. And trading George Pickens to move up for a quarterback should not be ruled out of the realm of possibilities. How bad of a decision is that?
If that happens, first of all, if they draft Tyler Shuck in the first round, no matter where they draft him, I'm not going to be happy. Okay. I don't want a 26-year-old rookie that has injury issues. I just don't. I don't. You have Mason Rudolph, who's barely older at this point, and who probably has the same upside in the NFL in my eyes. I understand that Tyler Shough is moving up in the draft board, but that's because he's a shiny new toy out of Louisville. He is 26 years old. If I'm looking for the future, I'm not looking for somebody who should already be on his second contract. So drafting Tyler Shough in the first place is not something that I'm looking forward to. If they trade up, include George Pickens in the trade to draft Tyler Shough, I am formally writing a letter and a vote of no confidence for anybody that is currently inhabiting the Southside facility. That is a horrible decision. And if they do that, I think more people would be upset about that than if they just signed Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. You don't see any upside in Tyler Shough?
Nope. Not in the first round. No, I would rather take Jalen Milroe in the first round. And you know I've been against that. I would rather take Jalen Milroe in the first round than Tyler Shough.
Okay. I think I disagree with that one, but I hear you. Opinion doesn't matter what we say. It matters what the Pittsburgh Steelers are thinking. And if there's a growing belief, and Fowler knows the Pittsburgh Steelers, if there's a growing belief that the Pittsburgh Steelers might do something crazy, Jackson Darton, they're not going to go get Shedeur Sanders. They're going to have no shot at Cam Ward. Although Rich Eisen tried to say, like yesterday, what if they just threw it all at the Tennessee Titans and said, let's go get Cam Ward, which I'd be all about. You want me to endorse a trade? Yeah. Give up this year's first round pick, next year's first round pick, next year's second round pick, and George Pickens, and then maybe this year's third, and go get Cam Ward. I'm about it. The Steelers could take a year and say, we're not drafting anybody. This is not going to be a good year for us, but the foundation's there, and a year from now, we're good to go. We could go you're going to have so many picks next year, so many picks. You could use your 2/3 to get back into the first round. Doesn't matter. You have options. I would be all about that. That would never happen in a million years. Never. I'm not going to rule out the possibility that Tyler Shough gets traded for by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't do it where we sit right here because they're cool, calm, and collected waiting for Aaron Rodgers. Today and April 27th are very different days. Very different days. What?
You're breaking my heart with all the Tyler Shough praise.
I'm telling you, I'm not praising Tyler Shough. I think Tyler Shuck's good. I think he's much better than Jalen Milroe. I also think he's I think he's a better prospect if he wasn't 25 years old than Shedeur Sanders. I actually do think that. I think he's got a better arm than anybody in this draft class. But again, he's got injury history and is 25, and I don't know. I think you got to take all that into account when you're talking about these guys. But the Steelers, man, they might do something crazy. All right, that's my conspiracy theory for the day. One that I didn't even come up with. I didn't even develop that one. That's how nuts that one is. With that said, we're gonna finish off the show the same way we do every single day. We're going to dive into all your questions, which I'm sure we got a lot of them on everything that we just talked about today. So I'm very excited for it. If you got them, toss them in the chat. Shout out to all of our members. Shout out to our super chatters. Appreciate you guys for keeping the lights on here at All Steelers Talk, as always. Nick, what do we got?
Yeah, let's kick things off. When speaking about members, there's a couple of gifted memberships today. Knock gifted 5 All Steelers Talk memberships, and Carl Spackler said, let me add one on top of that. So 6 new members to All Steelers Talk today.
You be doing some crazy things, Carl. Thank you very much. Thank you, Knock. Can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys.
Let's go down to Dominic, who says, happy Friday, fellas. What say yins about round 1, Kenneth Grant, round 2, Will Howard, round 3, Jonas Sanker. Yins, remember the last fat Ohio guy with a rocket arm? Worked out pretty good. Love from Maryland.
All right. Is Giannis, can we look up Jonas Sanker? Who is that guy? I don't know if I know who that is, but the fat Ohio guy with the rocket arm got me curious about what we're looking for here. I love the Kenneth Grant in round 1. I think that's their best available pick if he's there at 21. I don't know if he's going to be, but man, he works out so well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Will Howard, the Steelers have to move back into round 2 to be able to get Will Howard, but I do think that he's on their radar. He's the other one that I think is going to come up here quick after Tyler Shough. Like as this continues to go, I think you got to wait till the pro day. Once he's throwing on air and everybody sees it, that's when he becomes a first round quarterback next. So it'll go Tyler Shuck. Jackson Dart will start becoming a top 15 quarterback. Tyler Shuck will start making his way up there. Will Howard will start making its way up there. Jalen Milroe will be on the verge, man. He's a trade back into the first round type of guy where we stand right here. But I still like Will Howard. I think he's got a lot of upside. Jonas Sanker, who we got here?
Jonas Sanker, I guess is the way you pronounce it. He's a safety out of Virginia.
Oh, actually, I do know who that is, and he is a stud. Now, here's my thing. The Steelers are showing interest in Malachi Starks, which you got to pay attention to. If the Steelers show interest in safeties, you got to think there's a reason for it. And, I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick's coming into what I believe is the last year of his contract, maybe the second last year of his contract. And if the Steelers are sending signs here, maybe we start listening. Maybe we start listening that it's time for a change here. I would like that draft. I think it's pretty good.
We got a sicko and Knock. He just gifted another 5 All Steelers Talk memberships.
Knock,
today.
bro. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Like, genuinely, thank you.
Let's go to Cody Silva, who says, I don't even know why Najee Harris is talking. All the equipment in the world isn't going to make him any faster. And Justin kept fumbling the snaps, and he's terrified in the pocket.
Look, I'm not gonna bag on either of these guys. I think Najee Harris's talk is warranted when it comes to the facilities. The Steelers need to upgrade those facilities. But like I said yesterday, you can't do that for 5 years. So everybody who comes through Pittsburgh for the next 5 years is screwed. And then 5 years after that, they will hopefully, what they need to do is remove themselves from Pitt, move on, go somewhere else, and make it big, glamorous, and awesome, and make my life a little bit more difficult for a drive, but that's okay. We'll be doing a lot of podcasts from the facility. I'll tell you that much. A lot of late nights getting home. I always feel like when I walk in the door after my wife, which is rare, to that old guy who's coming in and sits down. He's like, what's for dinner? I had a long day. That's what I feel like. So we'll be a lot of those, but I think that's worth it. When it comes to Justin, look at if they draft Jackson Dart, the Jets are the Jets, man. I try to give everybody a warning. The Jets are the Jets. I tried to give Justin a warning through this podcast. The Jets are the Jets. Nothing changes, man. The Jets are the Jets.
Let's go to Dominic, who says GP and a 4th to the Pats for Joe Milton and a 2nd.
Oh, I think you're giving up a lot for Joe Milton there. I think you're giving up a lot. I think GP to the Pats for Joe Milton and a 2nd makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't mind that one. I don't think you need to add a 4th. I don't think Joe Milton's got any draft stock or any trade stock. I think he has none. From what I've heard around the NFL, nobody is that interested in Joe Milton. Nobody views Joe Milton as like this big superstar quarterback. They view him as a big giant question mark who still needs another 2 years before he's ready to go. And while the Steelers could make a move for him, I think you're giving up a lot in a 4th. I'd just go GP for Joe Milton in a 2nd. And I honestly think that trade is all right. I think that's a pretty good trade for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Let's go to Cody, who says, are you really going to trade our 1st next year and next year's 2nd and George for Kenny Pickett?
Okay, let's start there. First disclaimer, I'm not making this trade, nor would I make this trade. I wouldn't even consider it. I would trade back. I'd draft Jalen Milroe. Next year, I would draft a quarterback in the 1st round. I'd make some moves to go get one. I'd keep Aaron Rodgers, and I'd say, all right, next year we have RG3 and we have Kirk Cousins. Who's the best? Who's our starting guy? And I'd say there it is. And I'd go all in on a quarterback. For 2 years, I'd go all in on a quarterback. We'll finish it with this. Tyler Shuck is 10 times Kenny Pickett. Okay, 10 times Kenny Pickett.
Talk about Jackson Dart too.
Jackson Dart's 10 times Kenny Pickett. Jackson Dart's 10 times. Both of them have 3 times the arm strength that Kenny Pickett has. They're a billion times better at reading a defense than Kenny Pickett has. They remain in the pocket. I mean, that's why Tyler Shuck's dealt with 11 injuries throughout his college career, because this guy gets hit all the time. Kenny Pickett was a bad prospect. Bad prospect. These guys at least are like bad prospects with good talent. You know, they're raw. Kenny was like, this is the best you're going to get. You better be cool with it. These other guys, at least there's like a lot of potential behind them. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to turn into it.
Okay, let's go to Knock. We're going to have a lot of these about the George Pickens hypothetical trade. If you give up a first and GP, you better draft a wide receiver to replace him.
I agree with that. I think there's just as likely of a possibility, though, that the Steelers trade George Pickens and don't replace him with a wide receiver. Like, I think that's a real possibility for the Steelers. I'd also say this, okay? Keep an eye on this name as the George Pickens trade stuff heats up. Tyler Lockett. Why not? He's not anywhere. He's very cheap, probably. He's old. You're only going to get him for a year. DK loves that guy. Russ has already called him a spitting image of Calvin Austin, or Calvin Austin a spitting image of him. I mean, that's the one thing here that we are overlooking when it comes to the George Pickens situation is you don't have to replace George Pickens with George Pickens. You could replace George Pickens with a bridge player to get you through this, to say, okay, our options were to lose George for nothing, have him hold out, create a bunch of drama, or after a drama-filled offseason, which I don't think the Steelers are going to want, or we could just say, all right, this isn't the best, but this is a good receiver, and we can rely on him. Name to watch. I don't think it's possible to find another George Pickens to replace George. I do think it's possible to find something in the realm of possibilities for a starting wide receiver.
Today's podcast is Death, Taxes, and Knock gifting another 5 all Steelers talk.
Dude, ridiculous, man. Thank you so much. I mean, at some point, I'm going to have to buy you a steak dinner or something. Jeez, thank you.
Let's go to Michael, who says, first-round pick and any quarterback in this draft is a reach.
Yeah, outside of Cam Ward, I agree with that. I think it's a loaded draft class in a lot of other positions, and I don't think I'd be going quarterback. The Steelers just tend to find themselves in desperate need for a quarterback in drafts where they, don't have good options at quarterback. So I agree with that.
Let's go to Thomas, who says, this GP talk is killing me, man. Draft D-line in the first, move into the second, get Milroe, running back in the third, and do not, in all caps, do not sign Aaron Rodgers. He won't be any better than Russell Wilson was.
Oh, I think Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson at this point in his career. I do think that part I agree with. I mean, don't sign Aaron Rodgers. Again, they don't listen to us often. Very rarely does Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, which again, next week I'll be at the owners' meetings. I'll be sitting right there. I could bring it up. I could be like, hey, dude, I got a lot of people telling me you guys should not sign Aaron Rodgers. They really don't want you to do that. But when it comes to the rest of this, draft a defensive lineman in the first round. I agree with that 100%. Move into the second to get Jalen Milroe. I think you're going to have to move into the bottom of the first. I still think I support that idea, though. If you don't have to give up too much, maybe, I don't know, your fourth or fifth and next year's third, something small. You can make a move at the end of the first round that doesn't require too much. Make that move, go get Jalen Milroe, running back in the third. I 100% agree with.
Quick shout out to our newest member, Greg Finnegan, who's joining the ranks as a member.
Hell yeah. Thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate you as always. Make sure to call into the call-in show on Wednesdays. The number is in the community, the members community section on our YouTube page.
Knock jumps in and says, by the way, I do like my steak rare with Texas Roadhouse rolls.
Texas Roadhouse rolls are the GOAT. They are the GOAT. I'm also a rare guy. I'm going camping this weekend to really, I'm really going to center my Aaron Rodgers this weekend. That's what we're doing. So we're going to go have a good time, and I will be making some steaks.
Let's go to the next question here. Why would you ever miss the opportunity to see GP and DK on the same team?
Look, if George Pickens walks into the Pittsburgh Steelers facility and says, I'm willing to play without a contract, no worries. I'll go into the last year of my deal. Let's work this thing out. You don't trade him. You are totally fine not trading him. That's fantastic that he just did that for you. He walks in and says, I need a deal or I'm not showing up. You don't have an option but to trade him because you're not going to sign him to a deal. So you only have one way to look at this, and that is, this is not on the Steelers. This is on George Pickens. Everything everybody is saying is that chances are he's not here in 2025. So again, like, I think if he said, I'm cool with it, I want to play on the last year of my deal, fantastic. you keep him. You don't even consider trading him. But if he doesn't do that, which chances are he's not gonna, you got to move on.
Let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says Rodgers could have his darkness retreats in Nick's sound booth.
Yeah, he could. He actually could. I'm pretty sure that's the corner of Nick's office too. So I wonder, you should paint the rest of it black so that it just gets you in the mood.
There you go. Let's go to Madeline, who says, okay, Noah and Nick, you're the GM and you're the one drafting. Oof. We go back into the second round and we have all of our other picks. We traded 2026 picks or whatever to get there. Who do you draft in each of the first 3 rounds and why?
All right. So, and anybody's available. Realistically, anybody's available. I'm going. All right. I'm going Kenneth Grant in the first round. I think that's an easy call there. In the second round, I'm going. Oof. To be. Oh man. All right. I'm gonna. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna. Second round. I'm trading up. Okay. I'm trading my 4th. Or my 5th maybe, and my 3rd round pick. I'm moving up into the early parts of the second round. I'm drafting Jalen Milroe. That's what I'm getting. Maybe Tyler Shuck if somehow he doesn't get there. But I'm drafting Jalen Milroe. My original second round pick, I'm getting one of the 3 running backs who could be there. Which the more all of this continues to escalate as well, the more I'm hearing that there might be like no running backs available at the end of the second round. That the Denver Broncos want a running back, the Raiders want a running back, the Cowboys obviously want a running back. There's another team that I'm blanking on here, but those are 3 teams right there. Ashton Genty, and then the 2 Ohio State guys. You're left with Caleb Johnson, which is a great pick, but you might not have the abundance that we thought they were going to have at one point during this offseason. And that doesn't all have to come in the first round. They all have picks before the Steelers in the second. So I'm trading back up. I'm going Jalen Milroe. End of the second, I'm going whatever running back's available. Hopefully it's Trey Henderson. If I had to guess, it's going to be Quinshon Judkins. That's going to be the guy that's left remaining of the 4. I'm cool with that one. And I think I traded my 3rd. So we're good with that one. 4th round pick. I'm going Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State, although I saw him in the first round of a mock draft the other day, and that scared the crap out of me that he's not going to be there. If not, I'm going to go wide receiver somehow, some way, and we'll go from there.
Let's jump down to Broderick, who says, camping, are you a tent or RV/camper type of guy?
I'm a tent guy. My wife is a tiny home kind of guy. We found our kind of girl. We found these, they're called the postcard getaway things or whatever. They're pretty cool. Fun fact, if you book them on Airbnb, they're way cheaper than online. But that's what camping is when it's me and the wife. When it's me and my brothers or something, we're in a tent in the middle of nowhere, most likely going to die, but we're having a good time.
Eddie the First wants to know, was there an episode of All NFL Talk this week?
Yes, there was. It is on our All NFL Talk channel, youtube.com/All NFL Talk. Dropped on Tuesday.
Let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, how strongly are you feeling that the Steelers end up going defensive line in the first round? Is it somewhat likely or is it very likely?
Medium. I'm feeling medium about the Steelers going defensive line in the first round. I think quarterback is really starting to emerge as an option here. I also think running back is an option where we sit currently. I do think that running back is gaining some very under the radar steam across the NFL as first round picks. And that's all it takes are teams to just start picking these guys for the Steelers to go, we need a running back. We got to get a running back. So I'm feeling medium. If I had to rank them right now, I still think it's defensive line in first, then quarterback, then running back. But I think that could change depending on how the first round works itself out.
Let's go to everybody's favorite UPS driver, Steven, who says, morning, guys. My question is now, with our second round pick gone, how important is that 4th round pick compared to the 6th for Justin's playing time?
Oh, massive. I mean, massive. You now have You have a third and a fourth round pick. You have options. So you could either trade. They knew what they were doing. They also fully understand that they're going to get a third, fourth, fifth, and 2 sixths next year in comp picks. Most likely, I think Mike Williams might have taken away one of those sixths with his deal in LA. But you can make a move using next year's third that you already have to say, let's get back into the second round, knowing that you have another third round coming. So I think it's massive. I think it's huge to think that the Steelers have a fourth round pick instead of a sixth when they might not have. And they would have been one pick between rounds 2 and 5. That's terrible when you still have some needs.
Let's go to Eddie the First, who says, start bench cut, pancakes, waffles, and French toast. That's right. I'm coming with the hard-hitting questions this morning.
That's a good one here. This one's an easy one for me, though, if I'm going to be very honest. I'm going pancakes, start. There's nothing better than some pancakes, man. And they're old reliable. Like waffles might taste better. Waffles might be more like, oh, they got waffles. That's sick. The waffles get you going. Waffles are saviors at hotels. I spend a lot of time at Marriott's, and those morning waffles, man, they are nothing like it. My diet gets screwed. My wife knows I'm breaking the diet. I know I'm breaking the diet. My body knows I'm breaking the diet before I even step foot into the Marriott during an away game or wherever, because I know those waffles are going to be there the next morning. So waffles are old reliable. Pancakes are starting. Too versatile, always good. Gets you it's just exactly what you need. Waffles second, French toast third, man. I love French toast, but it's never my first pick. It's never my first pick out of these three.
Well, that's just because you're not doing it right, Noah. You're not doing it right. Bacon is the GOAT breakfast food, but outside of bacon, peanut butter French toast is my second favorite. So French toast is fantastic. You make a peanut butter sandwich, then you make French toast and you drizzle it in syrup and powdered sugar, and you'll be happy. You'll be fat and happy, but you'll be happy. So French toast is starting for me. Pancakes are getting the bench. It's the perfect reliever. They can come in whenever and be whatever. And then waffles, they're good, but it's not as good as the other two.
Wow, dude. I can't say anything negative about peanut butter French toast. That does sound fantastic.
Let's go to Panda Games, who says, Noah, what happens if we do get Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers? Well, they do it again. They lose in the first round of the playoffs. Does Mike Tomlin's seat start to get hot?
No, not this year. Not with Aaron Rodgers. Next year, there's the conversation, which I don't think Mike Tomlin's seat ever gets hot. But next year, there's the conversation of it really starts to become, you need to prove that you could build another quarterback, that you could do this again with another QB. That's where it gets. This year doesn't mean anything. Toss in the towel. Steelers are just fighting for their lives here. They understand where they're at. Next year, whenever you have your next franchise potential quarterback, that's when it's like, okay, we have to see progress. You got to start putting this thing together. And if you can't do that, that's when I start to think the conversation begins to happen about whether or not Mike T is the guy in Pittsburgh from the inside, not on the outside. That conversation's been being had for years. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers it's got to be a real benchmark. And that real benchmark is going to be the next time they draft a quarterback and make him their starter.
Let's go down to Dennis, who says the GM should tell George Pickens that we won't franchise tag him next year as long as he's all in this season with DK and go for it.
I still don't know if that's going to work. I still don't know. Like, these guys are smart. Their agents are 10 times smarter. George Pickens' agent knows that there's a team out there that's willing to pay this dude a boatload of money this offseason. He's watching Jamar Chase and T. Higgins get paid a boatload of money. He knows that if he ends up in New England, if he ends up in, I don't think Vegas is a better option, but Vegas, if he ends up somewhere with a quarterback and an offense that works and he's the guy, he's going to have better numbers. He's going to be viewed better. And even if he doesn't sign this year, he's going to get a bigger contract next year. So all that's going to come into play. The Steelers don't have anything outside of already having him on the roster that says George's best opportunity is Pittsburgh. I just don't think it does. I don't think it is. And I think his agent and him are both well aware of that.
Shout out to Pittsburgh Hornets for the Shrek reference. In the morning, Noah's making waffles.
In the morning, I'm making waffles.
Then let's go to Steven Cornfield again, who says start bench cut Landry Jones, Will Levis, and Kenny Pickett. A real Sophie's choice here.
Yeah, this is a big yikes. I'm going to start Will Levis. I just think, at least Will Levis has one rocket arm, and you could, maybe he turns out to be something more than what he is. Next, I'm benching Kenny Pickett. Reliable backup, could come in, win you some games. Great at kneeling the football. And then I'm cutting Landry Jones. Shout out to Landry Jones, man. He was the dude, but he was not good. So shout out Landry Jones. I'm start benching cutting Will Levis, Kenny Pickett, Landry Jones.
Let's go to 603 Yinzer, who says, Sup, Noah and Nick, do you think it would be possible to trade Alex Highsmith to get a top 10 pick and grab Shedeur Sanders?
I can't say no to that. You'd have to give up way more than Alex Highsmith. You'd have to give up Alex Highsmith, your first round pick, and maybe next year's second, something like that. Maybe next year's third, depending on how high into the top 10. From everything that I'm being told, just like in conversations with the league, is that, or not with the league, but around the league, it's that Shedeur Sanders is going to end up in Cleveland. And there are a lot of teams in the top 10 that don't necessarily view Shedeur Sanders as a first-round quarterback. Cleveland's not one of those teams. So I would guess that he ends up there. And at same, like Kevin Stefanski's fighting for his job right now. So a quarterback is the best way to go. I think he ends up number 2 to Cleveland.
We got 2 more to get to here. Let's start with Fallen Palace, who says, do you think Minka is going to get traded with the newest signed safety? And could you see the Steelers extend GP if he and DK do play and have their best year yet? Thanks again to my beautiful Steelers King.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. I don't think that the new safety is a sign that Minka's gone. I think he's a backup. He's pretty comfortable in the role. It's a 1-year deal. So, it's almost like a tryout as a third to see if he could get a bigger deal somewhere else next year, or at the same time, if it works out in Pittsburgh and he could, stick around in Pittsburgh for a couple of years. When it comes to DK and George Pickens, I can't say no. I can't say no to that. If George Pickens goes off and has a phenomenal year and the Steelers say, screw it, we're going to make this thing happen, great. But I'm not going to say it's likely. I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say it's likely. The only issue there is like the Steelers could make this thing happen with a rookie quarterback because they won't have to pay that rookie quarterback throughout the entire length of DK and George Pickens contracts. So you could still have everybody will compare it to Cincinnati and say, well, they made it happen even with Joe Burrow. Yeah, but they don't have anybody else paid. You don't have a quarterback. You could pay TJ Watt. You could figure out all the rest of these guys. You could make all that stuff work, but you are going to have contracts coming up that get very tricky on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, what are you going to do with Joey Porter in 2 years? Like, where there are conversations to be had here. I'm not going to say no. I don't think it's likely, though.
And let's finish it off with Raymond, who says, Noah, how are we going to give Herbig the playing time that he deserves? He thought he was coming as an inside linebacker. Do you think he would excel there? I think he's a beast.
Just to, I'm not going to say you probably heard this somewhere, but just to correct you here, Herbig, from the second he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, was well aware he was going to be an outside linebacker, and the Steelers made it very, very clear. I asked the question. It was the second question asked about Nick Herbig after he was drafted, like moments after he was drafted. Is he going to play inside or out? And the answer was he's an outside linebacker. You talk to Nick Herbig. Did they tell you you're going to play inside or out? They told me I'm going to be an outside linebacker. So he's always thought he was going to be an outside linebacker. Some people are trying to really push the narrative that he should be an inside linebacker, but he's an outside guy. He's been an outside guy. I think his role right now is great, to be honest. I think he gets a lot of playing time. I don't know if I'm ready to say Nick Herbig would be better than Alex Highsmith or TJ Watt in a starting role. I think you have to just rotate the three of them. I think the more you rotate the three of them, the better to have all three of them on the field. But I think you have to utilize all three. I think you need 3 outside linebackers as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the fact that Herbig just gets to keep getting better and better and better, and in 2 years we get to decide if he's, worth being that guy, the franchise guy after TJ or Highsmith or whoever, that's awesome. But for right now, he's just learning from two dudes. He's super happy about his role in Pittsburgh, and he's just getting better by the year, which is promising for the future of the Steelers.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Make sure or check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Shout out to all our members and super chatters. As always, I hope everybody enjoys a great weekend in the Berg. Maybe we get some quarterback news. Maybe I'm doing live streams from the woods this weekend. Who knows? Possibilities are endless. Either way, enjoy it. We'll be back on Monday. Peace.